Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the story of a revolution that completely failed, and in failing, somehow managed to change everything.
So let's just jump right in with this, because for decades, economists have been in this constant tug-of-war, right? Between a perfect, elegant model of how markets should work and the messy, complicated reality of how they actually do. And it's that clash, that tension, that lit the fuse for a full-blown intellectual war.
All right, to really get what this fight was all about, we first need to meet the reigning champion of microeconomics. I mean, for a very long time, this theory was the undisputed king of the ring, perfect competition.
Now this theory, it's beautiful on paper. It paints this picture of a totally flawless, super efficient market, a kind of self-regulating machine that just works perfectly. But, and this is a huge but, for this perfect system to exist, it has to rely on a handful of very specific and very strict assumptions. And that, well, that's where the trouble begins. Just try to picture the world these conditions create. No single company has any real power at all. They can't just set their own prices. Nope, they can only accept whatever price the market spits out. They're what we call price takers. They're just reacting to the market, not shaping it. It's an economist's paradise for sure. But you gotta ask, does it look anything like our world?
Okay, so jump to the 1920s. An Italian economist named Sraffa comes along, and he finds a fatal flaw in the king's armor. And it all came down to a simple, powerful question that the model just couldn't answer. How do firms actually grow? This brings us right to the heart of the problem, a concept called returns to scale. It sounds a little academic, but the idea is actually super simple. If a bakery doubles everything, all its ingredients, ovens, and staff, does it produce exactly double the bread? More than double? Or maybe somehow less? The answer to that question is the bedrock of Sraffa's entire critique.
And here is Sraffa's logical trap, laid out perfectly. Let's just walk through the options. First, increasing returns. That means the bigger you get, the more efficient you are. Well, that leads to one firm growing and growing until it becomes a monopoly, so perfect competition breaks. Okay, what about decreasing returns? That's just illogical. Why would any rational company choose to grow if it just makes them worse at what they do? So that leaves only one possibility: constant returns. But if that's true, the theory gives us no clue what size a firm should be. It's a total dead end. Perfect competition was completely trapped.
Sraffa's conclusion was inescapable. He basically argued that to understand the real world, where firms have brands and compete in all sorts of messy ways, economists had to abandon this perfect model. They had to start looking at the world as it really is, a world of imperfect, monopolistic competition.
So now we jump to the 1930s, and this is where things really catch fire. Because Sraffa's critique wasn't just some dusty academic paper, it was like a spark that ignited a full-blown revolution in microeconomics. And it was happening at the exact same time as the famous Keynesian revolution in macroeconomics.
And just like that, the idea took off. In two different Cambridges, one in England with Joan and one in Massachusetts with Edward Chamberlin, economists began building entirely new models. And these new models, they embrace the imperfect nature of real markets, where firms are always actively fighting for an edge. So this set the stage for one of the great intellectual showdowns in economics. On one side, you had the Imperfectionists, the revolutionaries who saw monopolies everywhere and wanted new policies to fix things. And on the other side, you had the Perfectionists, based at the University of Chicago, who were getting ready to defend their theory, and they were absolutely not backing down.
Just as the revolution was really gaining steam, this powerful counter-movement emerged from Chicago to defend the old guard. But their defense was clever, it was pragmatic, and ultimately it was devastatingly effective.
The Chicago School, led by thinkers like Milton Friedman, completely changed the rules of the game. They argued, look, it doesn't matter if a model's assumptions are perfectly realistic. The only thing that matters is this: does it make good predictions? See, their argument wasn't that perfect competition was real, but that it was useful. And they came to the fight armed with data.
This number right here, this was their killer fact. In the 1950s, studies tried to measure the total economic harm, the welfare loss, from all monopoly power across the entire U.S. economy. The result? Less than 1/7 of 1% of GDP. I mean, to the perfectionists, this proved that all the fuss about imperfection was just a storm in a teacup. So, with such a powerful counterargument, what happened to the revolution? Where did this all end up? Well, the conclusion is deeply, deeply ironic.
Yup, the counterattack worked. The revolution just stalled out, and the old king
Perfect competition was put back on the throne. The perfectionists had won. But it was a very different kind of victory, and a very different king.
And here is the fantastic twist. In their quest to measure all the ways the world deviated from the perfect model, the revolutionaries accidentally cemented perfect competition's role as the essential yardstick. They set out to destroy it, but instead, they made it indispensable.
And this is the ultimate irony. The attempt to destroy perfect competition ended up giving it a new, more powerful job. Every time we talk about antitrust policy or regulating a market, we are measuring the real world against this perfect ideal that the revolutionaries fought so hard to get rid of.
And that's the lasting legacy of this failed revolution. It leaves us with a provocative and really vital question that economists and policymakers are still fiercely debating. If our main economic yardstick is a myth, how accurately are we really measuring anything? We are all still living in the shadow of this incredible battle of ideas.